Okay, good day. The title of the episode is an update on the R. However, this is not an R. This is my ZAU. So we're starting the video by talking about all of those other projects I talked about at the end of the last video. We've had a couple of gorgeous weeks where we've been able to be outside and get things done, and so there hasn't been a whole lot of progress on anything tractor-wise, but we are going to start getting back into it here in the next week or two. So got the ZA out from the lean-to at the other house. Brought it down here because it is going to be going into the shed so that I can take the rear tires off. Here's why I need to do that. So here's the 4-row cultivator that's going to go on the ZAU. I'm going to split it down to a 2-row. So I'm going to take this far section off, which is what most people do when they are going to turn it into a display. I'd like to be able to keep it the full 4-row. I was dreaming up a solution to where I'd put a giant bullet hinge out here and have this whole section hingeable so that you could still haul it relatively easily, but definitely not going to have time for that this summer. So the outer sections are going to get dealt with at a later time, and I'm just going to strip off and turn it into a 2-row. And then over here is where the spring rake is that pulls behind. In order for that cultivator to attach properly, I have to put the roll lift on here. So I've got the support brackets for what's called the bearing plate for the roll lift, but I never actually had a roll lift. I did pick one up, and I'll show you all the pieces to that in just a second. In order for the arms to come from the cultivator back to the roll lift, these have to get moved out. And what I plan to do, rather than loosen these up and slide them out, if I remember right, when I went to restore this, I got one hub off. I could not get the other one off. So I opted to put it back on the way that I had it. The other thing that I can do here to achieve what I need to achieve is I'll just flip the tire around. That way the rim will shove the tire out and it'll be lined up more like right here, and that'll widen my wheelbase. I'll be able to move the fenders out and get the space that I need. So basically this tire just goes over to this side and that one goes to this side. So we're going to get it in there, we're going to get it up on jack stands, and this will be another project for this summer that I want to get done. So on this cart, I have everything I need for the roller lift, and then I've got the Unimatic power lift. Now that I have a video that I'll throw in here that when I bought it, I think like 5 years ago, I put it on my 445 and tested it and it worked, but I had a leak in this rear seal. So I've got to take this rear plate off. I'm pretty sure it's just a rubber O-ring that's in there. I'll have to find that, replace it, and put it back together. But other than that, the cylinder, it's a 10A80. The cylinder worked fine. I need to get all of this sandblasted, and then I need to start putting it all together on the Z. I'm going to have to make a slight modification to this plate because this is actually off of a U. So I'll probably have to completely rebuild the bearing plate, but everything else should work just fine. And then to go along with that, since my ZA never had a belt pulley, I have the belt pulley drive and the belt pulley itself. And so that'll be going on at the same time. You can see I've got the manual for the Unimatic. I actually picked that up this weekend at the Le Sueur swap meet. It's pretty much the only thing I came home with. It was a muddy mess, and unfortunately I wasn't able to find a whole lot for Moline parts. I did get one other thing that I'll show you in a minute. And so rounding out this cart, we've got this bracket that goes on the rear, underneath the rear axle of the Z, and this is for the pull behind blades that I showed you earlier. The problem is I only have the left side. I never had the right side. So I'm going to have to completely recreate this bracket, except for the other side. So that's another kind of fun project that we'll take on here on the channel. And so the goal for the Z is to have everything done on the cultivator and have the cultivator show ready in August. And next week is the beginning of May. So I've got roughly 3 months to get all of that done, to finish the 335, to finish the R and get it running again. So I've got plenty of work to do, and there's going to be a lot of overlap on the things that I do. I plan to probably tear this belt pulley drive down, and if nothing else, at least put a new seal in it so that I don't have oil leaking out the end of it. It's probably not going to get used much, so as far as the bearings go, I don't know if I'm going to change them or not based on what they look like. It's going to be the same thing with the 335 belt pulley that's on this cart. I already ordered the seal for this. If I get it taken apart and the bearings don't look half bad, and they don't feel half bad right now, so as long as they don't look half bad, I'm probably just going to put the new seal in and call it good. But we'll see. We'll see when I get it opened up. And then I also have some of the other components I already showed in an earlier video, along with the fuel tank. So all of this needs to get sandblasted as well. And then everything needs to get put under a coat of primer so that I can do what I need to do with it. Everything going back on the 335 is going to stay under primer until I paint the 335. Everything that's going on the Z, I have to actually paint it as I go. Because the Z is already fully painted, I just need to clean it up and buff it. So this stuff is going to get its own separate paint job every step that we go through. On top of that, I've been doing a little bit in the shed itself, just trying to get my workspace a little more comfortable. So I put in some new lighting. If you can remember the videos from last year, and it's still in process. I'm putting some sheet steel up on the ceiling, but if you remember the videos from last year, that right there is what I had for lighting, and now this is what I will have for lighting. Much brighter with that white steel. It's going to be a lot brighter, a lot easier to work. And then I've also been working on my air compressor setup. So my dad had 2 air compressors. This first one is a single stage 5-horse 60-gallon, and then this one is a dual stage 6.5-horse 80-gallon, and he had one up in the garage and one down here in the shed. And unfortunately, neither of them alone is enough to be able to run my pod sandblaster, at least for a extended period of time. So every time that I wanted to use the sandblaster, at least the most recent, was when I did the original paint job on the ZAU. I rented an air compressor, a screw compressor, diesel screw compressor, brought that in and then used that for the day. Um, but I wanted something that I could have here and I don't have to rent anything. And so what I came up with was I would take the two and I would plumb them together. Um, so this one's rated at, see if you can see it, 11.5 CFM at 40 psi, or 91 or 9.1 CFM at 90 psi. And then this one is 14 CFM at 100 psi and 13.2 at 175 psi. And the pod blaster needs between 15 and 20 CFM for continuous run. So in plumbing the two together, that puts me at 22 CFM at around 100 psi, which should be more than enough to run that pod blaster. And then I bought another 60-gallon expansion tank. So altogether, I've got 200 gallons of air, and I should be able to run it at 22 CFM. And then I kind of went a step further to where I don't need to run both of them all the time. So I plumbed it so that I can shut the bigger compressor off and use just the smaller compressor when I'm using just hand tools. I plumbed in a drain for everything, an auto drain, so that every 45 minutes I'm getting rid of the moisture at the bottom of the tanks. And then the only thing I have left to finish is I'll be plumbing in a loop that's going to go all the way through the top of the shed, and it'll bring air to different drop points so I don't have to have hoses running everywhere. And that'll hopefully be a later this summer, maybe fall. For right now, it's going to operate and do everything I need it to do. And then the last thing that I did is both of these are 220. So I got a coil for both of them to where I could have a 110 switch actually turn on and off the compressors from the other side of the shop. So I don't have to come over and flip the air valve control every time I want to turn one of them on or off. So yeah, I got that all plumbed in and ready to go so that we can hopefully have an uninterrupted sandblasting session. All right, back in the other shop now where you'll actually get the update on the R. I did find a new jug, new to me. Of course, it's very used, but it has no cracks. All I have to do is hone it. And the other thing that the jug needs before we can actually put it under paint and primer, I need to get Welch plugs put in. So there are 6 spots in the water jacket that are covered with these Welch plugs. These are the passages that they used to machine everything inside here. And this didn't have any Welch plugs, so I have those on order as well. And then we'll get those put in, and if you've never seen the install of a Welch plug, we'll put that on here too. I haven't really started the cleanup on anything yet. Again, like I said earlier, I've been busy outside, but the next step is to get both of these cleaned up. I am going to sandblast them and then repaint them so that they are the same color. The problem with any painting of tractors is no matter what you do, when you open a new can of paint, it's gonna vary from the other color that you were using. So even though it's Prairie Gold 1, it's gonna have just a different shade. So I'll at least have the jugs and the the head and the cover for the jugs all matching, but it might be just a shade off from what that original paint was. So from a distance, you won't be able to tell, but when you get up close, you'll probably be able to see it. And then I've got one set of rings that showed up, and I already mic'd everything. Everything looks good. So we'll clean up the pistons. We'll get the new rings on. I've got the new gasket set coming. So that's not here yet either, but we'll get all of that done and probably get the heads back on, or the cylinders, the jugs back on. And then we'll end up slowing down again because I need to get into that water pump and see if I can get that seal fixed so that we don't have this problem again. So hopefully, once I get all of the rings and the gaskets and I get everything cleaned up, the reassembly is going to go relatively quick. And then it'll slow down for that water pump. And then when the water pump's done, we should be able to put it back together and hopefully wrap this one up. But just wanted to get you an update on where it was at. The next video should be pretty heavily into cleaning, chasing all of these threads so that when I thread everything back together, it goes back together nicely. Just a lot of detail work. And then, of course, everything else is laid out over here. And then I've got the heads from the 335. I've got the good one, the bad one, and the good one. So I have to get all the valves out of the bad one. I have to tape off the good one. I have to get it under that primer color coat and then reinstall the valves. And then we can finally put that back on the 335 and start putting all of that back together. So yet another side project quest. So I've got plenty to do for sure. Then we'll head back out of this shop and back over into the other one. And we've got everything laid out still for the 335. We got it rolled back off of the stands that we left it on for winter, and we'll be able to get back into it here shortly. And then, just for some ambiance in the room, my dad had this display case that he had turned around and he was using it as a shelf for sandpaper. I cleaned it up and put some new lighting in it and decided it would be nice to display some of my die-cast 1/16 scale Molines that I have. These are kind of, trinkets that you get as gifts. When Minneapolis Moline is your hobby, then people kind of cling to that and they'll grab stuff at garage sales, or they'll give it as a birthday gift or whatever. And didn't really have a place to put it until now. So this is what I decided to do with it. So you can see I've got a 445 in there with a loader. I've got a couple of U's. And in the back there, I've got a 4-star. And the 4-star I actually picked up this weekend in Le Sueur. It was a decent price, and I really didn't want to go home empty-handed. It's kind of a shame to go down there and not come back with anything, so I had to buy something. But this gives me an opportunity to grow this collection a little bit too, and just a place to put it and show it off. If you have interest in those Unimatic power lifts, stay tuned because we're going to be getting into that this summer. There's plenty of it that interests me. I'm not super familiar with them, But I'm really eager to dig in and put it together and kind of see how it all works. This should hopefully be the last video that is kind of scattered and all over the place. I do plan on posting for the specific project, so we'll have a playlist for the ZA that I'm going to start with this video. I've already got a playlist for the R, and then the next R video will be specific to the cleanup of the R and putting it back together, and then we'll continue on with the playlist of the 335. I do need to do some spring tune up to the 445, change the oil, change the fluids, change the spark plugs, clean it up really well. So that might be a video by itself. And then the BF Avery, I've got to replace one of the Welch plugs. So I might do a short video on that. There really isn't a whole lot to it. But yeah, one of the Welch frost plugs needs to be replaced on that, and then the carburetor needs to be painted on that, and that's about it. The BF Avery's probably in the best shape of all of them right now. So I really appreciate everybody that has subscribed to this point. Again, if you're a fan of Minneapolis Moline, we're going to be doing a lot of Moline related things. So stay tuned, and thank you very much. Take your foot off the clutch.